here with me, riding in the studio, his very own studio here. We also have James zooming in all the way from Sydney, Australia. He's very excited to talk about the footy, I know, and we're ready to talk about the conclusion of the Rugby Championship. But before we jump in, I just want to talk about each team and their gameplay. I do want to talk to you both briefly about how you guys thought the tournament was run overall. But Hulla, studio, living here,
right,
getting it all done. How you feel?
That's good. I know people don't understand. You're right there, right there,
right here.
But James is in there. It's good, man. I'm going to look at the screen. I want to keep looking at it. It's kind of weird. We're going to figure out this camera angle real quickly soon. It feels good, man. Yeah, I'm glad to have it here. It's been in the pipeline for a while, and now I can just afford it. So that's barely. Yeah. We're gonna have some bonus point attire coming out. I'm going to split it evenly 3 ways so we can all afford something.
So we can look the part.
Right? Yeah, exactly. No, it's good, man. I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm actually, dude, I'm super stoked to speak with James about Australia winning. Because, it's been a while.
Oh,
and that wasn't even a dig. I'm being quite serious. I'm genuinely excited because this is the rugby has been amazing the last 6 weeks. It's been great.
Well, James, I want to dig in with you a little bit because there's been a lot of people talking about how the matches have been played in one country, your country, especially due to the fact that logistically they were able to provide fans in the stadium with double-header matches, something you don't get very often at test match level.
Mm-hmm.
And also stated that it kind of feels like a tournament-style feel, having all the teams in one area, being able to bounce place to place. So if COVID wasn't a factor, do you feel that they should lean on this a little bit more logistically and try and schedule these types of matches out? Or do you feel that test matches should be played in the country of the home nation or one of the home nations, and it should be the Rugby Championship like we've seen?
This question wasn't in the rundown, TJ, but I'll fetch it anyway.
Mate, the studio gets excited.
It's a good one. So for the people who are able to buy one ticket and watch 2 test matches, obviously a pretty incredible experience, but wherever possible, you want the test matches to be played in one of the team's home nations. So we kind of was fortunate to be able to scramble a 4-team tournament, and there were some really unusual things you've never seen in a test match before, where the 2 teams who are playing the following test match would come out into the tunnel and watch the test match before them, and that's never been really done to my knowledge in international rugby. And it was just like a strange, unusual little snapshot of where we're at. But I don't see this being a permanent thing, no.
You know what? Even saying that, I think it was cool because it takes you back to club roots rugby, right? Where if you're, outside of the Premiership, the Premier grade team, you're watching the guys while you're warming up. The team, is playing, and then you get to sort of, come on. So there was something about that was quite nostalgic, and I actually really enjoyed it. And I dare say it would have been quite the nice experience, or at worst, a different experience. Do you reckon, James, that had a part to play in how the teams played, perhaps?
For sure. So in your analogy, is the Wallabies versus Argentina, was that reserve grade? And the Springboks versus was that first grade?
Look, I'm glad you picked that up.
I
was definitely trying to be subtle about it, but I'm glad we're open enough to talk about it.
Yeah. But I think the
thing, you guys beat South Africa twice, we didn't. So
yeah, I think the result, all the games being played in Australia, certainly helped us, and the Wallabies have got a very, very good record in Queensland in Suncorp Stadium, so that's something. But you got to remember, most of the Wallabies were also in a bubble and away from their families and staying in hotels.
Mm-hmm.
They just happened to be doing so in their own country.
Yeah.
I don't even know. I'm not sure about the Brisbane-based Wallabies, whether they could sleep in their own bed, but it was kind of disruptive, and it was a bit of a bubble set up in a bubble environment for all four teams.
I can definitely confirm for at least the Polynesian contingent, they weren't staying at a hotel. There was lots of conversations had.
At someone's house.
That's somewhere. I can tell you exactly the address if you want some good carve back in Brisbane.
All right, well, let's kick off and we'll talk about the gameplay analysis. And we're going to start with the run to the litter this year, and that's the RG. So the Pumas, they had a very successful campaign during last year's Rugby Championship. They suffered a lot of setbacks, though, this year. COVID protocol issues, not being able to play any test matches at home, like South Africa as well, in some sense, although they had the Lions tour. They have a lot of very young and inexperienced players trying to mesh with some very older or veteran players. So I want to ask both of you just straight up is what do you think was Argentina's biggest struggle this year?
Mate, I honestly think watching it was almost like you were watching a different team every quarter of the game. It was almost like we're going to focus on this part of our game this quarter, and in the next quarter this part. And I think that came down to numerous factors. I don't want to be the guy blaming COVID, because I think as a professional organization, you stay prepared, ready. But watching Argentina, I never saw the same team every game, and I dare say, even down to a quarter or a third, I saw where they lacked in certain areas, namely the ruck situation for their first game.
Oh, yeah.
And then they come out in the second half and they're all over the ruck, and, they're countering really well. So, for me, I think definitely it reminiscent of the Wallabies sort of a few years ago, where you had that inexperience with the experience, and then there was just no middle ground.
Yeah.
But I don't know, man. It's a funny old year, dude. Argentina scare me, dude. I think they're in a very good place to be very, very healthy, and like the silent assassins come World Cup, because they've had let's call it what it is, a crappy year internationally. But I saw signs that I thought like, oh, this is a dangerous team. They just didn't quite get the mixture right between the 15 that's on the field. And I thought their subs that came on I don't think they ever performed. They didn't do their job when they came on.
But what you're saying is that if RG's got a good preseason and they didn't have these protocols to worry about, they definitely have the opportunity to win the Rugby Championship.
I definitely think they're scarily good.
Yeah. And
I just think, it's mismanagement of mismanagement of their players, I think, personally, because there was they had highlights. How do you not win a game and you still got highlights? Do you know what I mean? Like, that's the scary thing. And I'm not talking like, you've got like this best player that, completely outshines. I'm talking like a constant, like 4 or 5 phases, a nice chip kick, a nice regather, slick backline move. But again, let's 13 of their squad got COVID.
Something.
So it was like a high number of players got COVID. So how are you going to have combinations when you can't even train, and then you're rushing them in last minute?
Yeah,
for some of them.
And also, James, just leading into your thoughts is I know that some of them did have to suffer that COVID protocol situation in the last Test match, because some of them went over the border, or
Queensland, right?
Yeah, they went over somewhere and they weren't able to. Correctly.
They went to a health retreat in Byron Bay.
Health retreat. Yeah, that's what I.
That's not even Queensland.
No, that was a problem. They crossed a border from Queensland into New South Wales.
Yeah.
And then they couldn't get back to that quarantine.
So they have no way of clarifying whether they expose themselves or anything like that. But okay, fair enough. What do you think about Argentina, James?
I agree with most of Hulla's points. They're a little bit erratic. You compared them to the Wallabies. I kind of compare them to the French, where if they're in the right frame of mind, they can beat anyone. If they're a little bit flat and they don't have an edge, they're not really a top nation, and they can go anywhere from beating the All Blacks to
losing
so you remember when they beat the All Blacks last year, they were just passionate, emotional, playing out of their skin, and you could see that before kickoff. I didn't see that look in their eyes in any of the games this year, and that's a big part of it for such an emotional team. From a technical side of things, the Pumas have always based their game around attacking flair, breakdown, and mainly the scrum, and their scrum is now a weakness.
Yeah, that was surprising.
Yeah. It was a little bit of that last year. There were signs that the Puma scrum is no longer a great strength. And then this year in the Rugby Championships, it was actually a weakness. They got pushed around a bit and penalised quite heavily.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I hope they can get a good preseason and they can come back a little bit stronger, because I saw a few of their players, they've headed straight back over and they're playing in their top 14 and a few other teams. So hopefully they can get another season. Let's move on. We'll talk about South Africa next, because they've also had a bit of a roller coaster. They lost to Australia. What was it? Both times.
Both times.
Yeah, they lost to the All Blacks after.
Yeah, see, James.
He's stoked about it. But they lost the All Blacks.
Oh, come on.
In the first Test match, and then they were able to come back, tweak their strategy a little bit, and get on top of the All Blacks in the second Test. And it raised a lot of questions about what the Springbok DNA is. So throughout the whole Rugby Championship, I don't believe, and I think you guys agree, is that they haven't really been consistent when it comes to their playing style, their tactics.
No.
When they played Argentina and Australia, they kind of looked like a shell of themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And they played the All Blacks in the first Test match. It looked more like a game of bloody Aussie rules. It didn't look like a game of rugby. They were just kicking everything away and just trying to force errors. But I think in the final Test match, although it wasn't perfect and we've seen better styles from them, I think that it was a more balanced structure, and it showcased what I think is the team's DNA. Their playing tactics in the maul, especially, was something that I was really stuck out to me, because that's what I think they've been known for a lot in their playing style in the past. So I'll come back to you, James, first. Is this the way they should play, or have they got a long way to go until they find their true DNA again?
I think the idea of their DNA, I think they know the way they want to play. I think they've won a World Cup and a Lion series with a certain style of play. I just really dislike that style of play. Mm-hmm. So
you must
in Australia, we're kind of so ingrained into using the ball and attacking and trying to outscore the opposition with more tries. So the idea that kind of a team just wants to kick the ball away and force penalties in your area and then kick 3 points or kick for the corner, when they're unsuccessful, I think it's a good thing for rugby. When that style of play is really successful, it makes me worry.
Yeah.
So to see them drop 3 straight games to the champions in gold and the All Blacks in that first Test, I thought that probably showed that they don't really have enough attacking power. They don't use the ball well enough. When they found themselves behind on the scoreboard and tried to attack, they looked lost. Mm-hmm. So I think they know what they want to do. They know how they want to play. I think they just probably lack flexibility and they lack attack.
Yeah, because I think a lot of their gameplay came down to their bench in that last Test match. I think they really saved them, like the Francois Steyn kick, where he was able to make that 50-22. I think that was something where the flow started to change a lot. And yeah, I think that's what's did the All Blacks in after a lot of mistakes. But Hala, what do you reckon? Their DNA?
Yeah, I don't know. It's tough to say because we saw elements of why they won the World Cup, and I also think we saw a lot of like what's going on here. I think Kolisi was the only one that really stood up every game that you saw him play. And like previous episodes, I'm very big on watching how players react on the field, and you could sort of see most of I dare say 70-75% of that team just felt defeated. And it wasn't until that second All Blacks game when the subs came on, and then all of a sudden there was this, okay, cool, like this is within our grasp now. I don't know, man. It's tough to say. I agree with James. Like it's just sort of, you see them on the field and you look at them and you think, holy moly, like what a team on paper, and then the physical prowess that they have on the field. But then, like you said, they're playing AFL. Yeah. And it doesn't work. But then they're stubborn enough to keep at it. And so you're sort of like, well, what's going on here? The flip side to that is, I also think perhaps it was we've got nothing to lose and we can blame COVID type of scenario. Let's try this. And I'd hate to think that that's a coaching mindset. But also, if you're ever going to try something, now's the time to try it and not really get much blowback. And when you're talking South Africa rugby, where they hold everyone pretty accountable, it's is that sort of, do we want to start switching to some European type rugby? I mean, if you're going to do it, this is where you would do it with no blowback. We're not in South Africa, so we're not at home.
Yeah.
COVID's, killing us, and I'm not saying they're trying to use these as excuses, but I'm saying
they've got that window.
You've got that window to be able to try something and see if it actually works and not get much blowback.
Yeah.
And you just beat the Lions. So here's the thing. Well, we beat the Lions.
But we're going to try and play Aussie rules.
But we're going to try something different, and let's just see how it goes. It didn't work. So, I doubt that we would see that again. And if we do, then I'll take back everything I just said and be like, oh, you dumbasses.
Well, because what I could see is that the only reason they would be trying those things is that they've got the World Cup coming up in 2 years. They've got this window to experiment and try different game plans and things like that and see what works, see what doesn't. Put people under the test. That's the only kind of reason I can think they were trying those types of things. And you say accountability as well. They held everyone accountable except their strength and conditioning coach who runs up and abuses a assistant referee.
Right. Hey, South Africa.
Yeah. But,
you know what? I'm kind of here for it, though. I'm going to be honest.
Of course you will.
We need to hold referees accountable. That's all I'm trying to say. Okay? If we held referees accountable like we do our players, the game would be better off.
We're already holding them accountable. They're doing their job.
Nah, mate. There's a certain SoCo referee I want to have a word with too. I mean, if we're going to go down.
All right, let's add a real debate in, and let's chat about this. So the Springboks, they're now ranked number 1 over the All Blacks after beating them in that last Test match. Are they the number 1 team in the world? This is the thing I want to ask you guys. Obviously their playing styles are different, but I want to see if you guys think, are they the number 1 team in the world, or is COVID and various other factors, has it painted the wrong picture with the ranking? So I'll go with you first, and James, you tell me after.
I actually, I think yes, they are the number 1 team in the world.
Okay.
The reason why I'll say that is because they won the World Cup.
Mm-hmm.
They've gone on to beat the Lions in a concurrent fashion.
With basically a year break as well.
Yeah. Right. And I just think I'm not even using COVID as an excuse. I think how they went during this season is won some, lost some. And I just think I honestly thought how they rate the point system is terrible.
Yeah, I agree.
And going through how they rank them, I still think there could be a slight adjustment to them.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I just think that the World Cup holds a lot more weight. I think that needs to be held in its weight in gold. And if you win the World Cup, then yes, for the next 2.5, 3 years, that's going to hold its weight. And no amount of because then if that isn't the case, then how do we hold the Rugby Championship versus Six Nations? Which one's held better? Got more value. So, do I think that on paper? Yes. Do I think that they need to prove it a lot more? I'm like, of course.
Yeah.
But that's part and parcel of the system that we're in. And I just think if we lose sort of, like I said, I think there needs to be an adjustment. But if we lose the weight and the value of what winning a Rugby World Cup means, then what's the point of it in the long run?
Okay. James,
if all it means is getting to number 1 in the world.
James, jump in here. What do you think?
Yeah, I kind of agree that you got to give the weighting to the World Cup. The World Cup was 2 years ago. There was a year of kind of almost no test matches for the Springboks. I think there was a year with no test matches.
Yeah, I don't think Springboks played at all.
So the World Cup win was 2 years ago, so it should carry some weight, but they've also lost 3 of their last 4 matches. I think the way the Rugby Championship table finished, All Blacks were way ahead. Pumas were at the bottom, and then Wallabies second, Springboks third, and that was tight. I think that was a fair reflection of that tournament. And so for a team that finished third in a 4-team competition and have lost 3 of its last 4, I have trouble calling them the world number 1 team. And then I also just dislike the way they play rugby.
They need one of those columns in the world rankings to be like, James dislikes the way they play. Just be like, okay, yep.
I'm going to be honest. I think we need to start pushing James to have a column, like a sporting column in the Daily Telegraph, or at least for News Limited. We just need like James's Jimmy thinks. Jimmy thinks world rankings are rubbish.
Gets negative.
I'm
going to say this, but the All Blacks should be number one. That's your first.
Hey, at least he's
honest.
Yeah, he's honest. There you go. Yeah, I like it.
We'll know a little bit more. This will all shake out in November and December with the spring tours.
Yeah.
So if England roll the Wallabies and the All Blacks, they've got a very good claim to being world number one.
Yeah. I can't see that happening, honestly, but
I don't know.
Yeah.
Dude, I honestly think. Sorry, James, keep going.
No, I was just about to say those crossover hemisphere matches put the Rugby Championships in a bit of context. So we'll know a little bit more in a couple of months.
Yeah.
In a month. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I personally think it was when we had the night at your place in Slough, and we watched the England-France test match. I personally thought that France were on their way to becoming the number one team in the world because they had such a good run. But yeah, I think of this Northern Hemisphere, all the spring tours are going to be really a good opportunity to showcase everything. But
definitely.
Let's move on because I want James to get a smile on his face and start talking about his favourite team, and that's the Wallabies.
It's the Sydney Roosters.
Because they're on a hot streak right now. The Wallabies have not won 3 consecutive games in a row since 2017. And Wallabies fans are starting to believe again. They're getting that fire in their bellies. They're loving to come out to support the Wallabies. And we know they've had a lot of different players come from overseas, join their squad. They also have experimented a fair bit with younger players that they've added to the Wallabies. Some have been disappointments like Noah Lolosio. Some players have been really good breakaway players like Kellaway. No pun intended.
Mate,
he's broken.
Let's just talk about Quade Cooper. Come on now.
Okay.
I put up a Facebook status from 2 years ago, and this is what I did. My Facebook memory came up, was about Quade, and I'm like, dear Mr. Chica, you've got a running 10. His name's Quade. You know what I did? I reposted that, and I said, well, this aged really fucking well.
All right, you're going to get your chance. Okay? You're going to get your chance. But I want to give the marquee Wallabies fan, because I want to ask him, what is the true success module of the Wallabies? Is it the overseas players? Have they been making the right tactical adjustments? Is it the aura of Dave Rennie? What's the reason, James? Why are they winning right now?
Mate, I think there's the obvious thing to point to is the influx of talent, and Wallabies fans making excuses for losses like myself over the last couple of years. I've always pointed at, if we got these guys in the side, this is what it would look like. Yeah. And I feel like the last month or so has given us a bit of a glimpse of what things would look like if we just abandon our eligibility rules and just picked any Wallabies anywhere on the planet. We simply don't have the depth to lose all these guys overseas, pick the next best guys, and compete with the top 2 or 3 teams.
Yeah.
But we always kind of the online Wallabies supporters, the keyboard warriors will always knock out a Wallabies 15 on paper if there was no eligibility rules, and it should compete with any team in the world.
Yeah.
And I think we're starting to see bits of that.
Mm-hmm.
And then Hulla mentioned the Quade Cooper factor. The last time I saw Quade Cooper in a Wallabies jersey, I thought he was done, and I've never been happier to be wrong.
Well, that's true. When was that? Was that the 2015 World Cup?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, we both watched that game, and I remember many conversations that we've had over a few bevies where we've spoken about players from overseas coming back and playing for the Wallabies if they were allowed to, and it would have been very good. Like seeing Latu put in the squad right now to go over and play, I was amazed. I loved it. But okay, Quade fan number 1.
Bryce, here's the thing. I've been saying for a long time, years in fact. My Facebook memory said so.
You have.
No, look. In all seriousness, I think, and look, I hate to be the guy that says this, But the players that you're losing going overseas are the best players, which goes to show the complete shit show that Rugby Australia have right now with trying to invest in their rugby program. So if you're really going to if they're going to and this is the one problem I have with Rugby Australia is you make players feel guilty when they put themselves first to provide for themselves and their family, and then you complain and you look everywhere else outside of your own office and your own eligibility rules, and then when things start going according to plan, very quiet. So what we're seeing right now is guys like Will Skelton, Latu back in the squad, Quay, Karevi. What you're seeing are guys that, and also hate to be the guy that says it, these guys are the ones that were quite vocal about how the organization was run, hence why they did leave, because there were contract negotiations weren't going too well or whatever. But I'm glad that I'm like James. I'm glad to see them back. I think what we're seeing is 100% the keyboard warriors going like, these are all our players overseas, and the keyboard warriors were right.
Yeah,
they were right.
Well, can I play devil's advocate just for a little?
No. So anyway,
just for a second. So, do you think that obviously Super Rugby has trouble competing with overseas contracts when it comes to money?
Dude, I'm gonna be really real right now, and I'm gonna digress a little bit, but this is why Rugby Australia and New Zealand Rugby don't want this, is because if they change their eligibility rules, then their super contracts have to allow people, but the players that can be dual internationals play for the other countries. Otherwise, you're a running hypocrite. You can't tell if you're going to choose Samu Karevi to play for, like he's playing in Japan, that can come and now play for the Wallabies. Why aren't you letting, let's say, Baisami, who may not be chosen for Australia, not play for Samoa?
Okay.
Because why? What's the difference?
Okay, I see where you're coming from. I think the other
argument
James.
is... No, I see James got something.
Private equity when it comes to Super Rugby, trying to get them more money for their contracts.
Right. So, but if they're not... But that's what I'm saying, though.
Yeah.
If Karevi isn't going to make $1 million in Super Rugby and go and make $1 million in Super Rugby and then go and make $30,000 a game for the Wallabies...
Yeah.
What's that ratio difference of Baisami staying, and I'm just saying as an example, playing in Super Rugby and making his $500,000, then going to play for free for Samoa, like that ratio, it doesn't. We're talking principles here.
Yeah.
So what's the difference now?
All right, James, jump in. I can see you.
I don't think you want players changing countries like they change clubs. I think there needs to be some sort of kind of hard and fast way that you decide who you represent at an international level. And I don't think you ever want any rugby players wearing a number of different international jerseys. I just don't like the idea of that. You make some good points that half of the Wallabies backline is Fijian of birth. So why aren't they playing for Fiji? That's a different that's a different conversation. But I think the Super Rugby issue about whether we can compete with the foreign cashed up clubs, we probably can't. The counter argument is that if we're drawing Wallabies players from France, Japan, and all those competitions, they become less appealing to those clubs. Like the Japanese club is now dealing with Samu Karevi with an injured syndesmosis, and they had him on loan to the Wallabies.
Doesn't matter. He's going to Pacifica Moana anyway. So. Right here first.
There's a theory that says that if the Wallabies are taking their players back from French and Japanese clubs and they're getting injured every now and then, they become less appealing to poach and pick off in the first place.
Right.
Okay. So even if we do provide them with this opportunity to come over and play those international tests from the Japanese teams, they may not even look to sign them anymore because they're just going to sit there and go, we're going to pay you $1 million and then you're going to get injured a game later.
Well, they may look like it won't be a free-for-all and it won't be like a deluge of talent leaving the way
It has
people fear that if you relax the eligibility rules, that all the domestic players will just go overseas to earn more.
Mhm.
I don't think that is entirely the case, but this probably will dilute and damage the Super Rugby talent a little bit. But I think Super Rugby in Australia will still be a decent product.
Do you think that perhaps we need to start looking into that loan system, which I'm really not keen on, but I've seen like soccer, football works quite well. Is that something that we could perhaps incorporate in Super Rugby where the seasons are different, right? Winter and winter. But obviously when it comes to international, it starts to get a little hazy because obviously you're talking about tours when you should be playing club rugby, but now, and I think even the Quade Karevi situation is starting to get messy now because Quade at least and Karevi should be back in Japan getting ready for their season, but instead they could be called into their spring tours.
Yeah.
Well, the spring tours largely happen, and all the test matches largely happen in those windows where World Rugby says every club must make international players available during these windows.
Right, but that doesn't happen in France.
Well, a minor elective surgery happens a couple of weeks before those. There's a little bit of that.
I have to get my eyebrow down.
But there are protections. There are protections to make sure that eligible players make themselves available for test matches, and that the test matches are between the very best players of each country.
Okay. All right.
Except the Pacific Islands. That's all I'm going to say.
We're gonna chat about it next week. Okay.
I'm being serious though. I'm just saying, bro.
We're coming.
Submissive to Bowl can't be easy.
Next week.
Got neglected from the Kali thing. That's all I'm saying. I know. I'm just saying. I just want to set this forward.
Right. Spoiler alert. Thanks, guys. I really appreciate it. Okay, so let's finish off by talking about the Wallabies because obviously we just spoke about all the overseas players. If you look at the squad during the whole year, and who are your ideal combos that you guys want to see? So I'll bounce back to you, James, because personally I want to see that 10, 12, 13 combo of I do like Quade, but I want to see James O'Connor a little bit with Samu and Paisami. I think that would be a really good 10, 12, 13 combo that I would love to see together. James, who do you want to see in your home team?
I'd like to see Cooper at 10, Karevi at 12, and Paisami at 13.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah.
And then Ikitau pushes to the bench, and you've got a bit of flexibility with Paisami being able to play 12 or 13. O'Connor can start at fullback, so he finds his way into the and then you've got
that is a deadly.
And then Corabetti and Kellaway on the wings, and you're starting to look very, very dangerous and very deep.
Super dangerous.
Well, because that's what a lot of people worry about with the eligibility rules, that Corabetti had signed his international deal, and they were like, okay, that's his Wallabies career done, but now we can just bring him back. So, there you go. It's good. Okay.
He's not going anywhere.
All right. What do you reckon?
I'm exactly the same. I think if
no one wants to give love to any of the forwards. Come on, like what's going on?
I'm going to be honest. I'm not super. Here's the thing with the forward pack. No offense to the OGs.
Yeah.
I haven't seen a front row that I'm actually 100% certain in. I think when Nellick started, he played really good, started to fade. I think when he came on, I think James Slipper was good for 15 minutes.
Yeah, probably good.
Fade. I haven't seen a front row. So within the forward pack, I do want to say, if we're going to talk, just for the record, I agree with everything James said about the back line. That is the best back line Australia could ever field in the last 5 to 8 years.
Yeah.
The forward pack, there's a lot up for grabs.
Mm-hmm.
The front row is a big deal for me because I'm seeing some. I just think when you watch them play South Africa and the All Blacks, and even Argentina, as much as Argentina, who are forward dominated and they were pretty crappy, I just think they were still competitive in that front row. Mm-hmm. And the front row individually stood out, but I haven't seen a front row that I like.
So you're not sold on Slipper. You're not sold.
No, not at all. I don't think Slipper. I think Slipper shouldn't be in the team. I think he brings a great prop mindset and so much rugby IQ that it's needed in the team.
Yeah.
But I just think now that physically, the game's a lot faster than I think he can keep up with. Like I said, I thought he played good for 15 to 20 minutes.
But you need him to play.
But that's not like you got Nella Topol that can literally play 80 minutes, very consistently.
And a lot of people have said that. A lot of people have gone and on a crusade and said that he should be starting because he can last that whole 80 minutes.
Right, but he can't be the prop that he's nowhere near the prop that James Slipper is for 20 minutes over 80 minutes. And that's what I mean. I think James Slipper brings a rugby IQ in the prop position that's so beautiful. And I think Alan Alatoa, I don't know, man, there's something like he's so great. And that would be where the sentence ends. No, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I think he's such a great player. But like when you think of front rows, like when you think of a front row for the Wallabies, there's no way you can tell me right now you've got like a front row that's like, yeah, they killed it. They killed it in the last 4 to 5 years. Like, yeah, that was the front row. It isn't. They've got really good options and really good combinations, but not like a front row. It's not like, you think of the All Blacks and you're like, phew.
Yeah.
Well, that's tough because now you could do these three, or you could do these three, or you could do like these three.
That's true. And
I just think I think that's the one thing that's missing with the Wallabies is like a front row that you're just like, like holy moly. They'll get the job done. Having said that though, super excited to see Skelton come back.
Yeah, well, okay, that was going to be my next question. So we're going to move a row down because James, I know we've spoken a lot over the times about if this lock was back from overseas, we would be in a perfect spot. So Skelton coming back into the fold. We've got a couple of players like Phillip. He's looking like he's doing pretty well. We don't have to worry about Rob Simmons anymore, only winning lineouts and doing nothing else. So what do you think, like the ideal lock combination for the Wallabies? What do you reckon? I
think Skelton and Adam Coleman. And then you have one of the Arnold boys on the bench. I feel like for the last couple of years, our best 4 or 5 locks have all been ineligible for the Wallabies.
Correct.
So you're now going to your, if you've got an injury or two, you're now going to your 6th or 7th lock, and you don't have the depth at that position. So
totally agree.
If you open things up and you've got Skelton on one side, Coleman on the other, Skelton adds mass, he's dynamic, he's physical. Coleman's Skelton and Coleman both very good at line out. You're both taller than Phillip, more athletic. It's has anyone seen Matt Phillip run?
That's why I just want.
Why are you always going to play?
I'm just trying to say.
Why are you always going to play the Polynesian?
I'm just trying to say.
All right, I'm going to move on before he has a Polynesian love fest over here. But last but not least, let's chat about the Rugby Championship champions. So the All Blacks. In my opinion, we have a lot to be thankful for because of overall it was a successful campaign. But there's not to say that we don't have things we need to improve.
Correct.
I think the coaching still has a far way to go. I think our decision-making in key moments, that's also something that needs to be fixed. I'll bounce back to you. What do you think is the ABs? Why did they lose their last test?
Too many Chiefs, not enough Indians.
And here I thought you were just taking a dig at the Chiefs, and I was like, that's really bad as a Chiefs fan.
Yeah, no. I think, look, Artie is a great player. I think I thought he captained really well overall.
Yeah.
I think he went missing in that last game. As a captain, not as a player. Sorry, not Artie. When you think about the All Blacks as a whole, there's so much experience that there's too much happening at one time. As in, Dan Coles is the perfect example. When he thinks something should be one way and it isn't that way, you can see it on the field.
Well, you can see that a lot in their team chats when they score a try or they're talking about a penalty. There's 6 or 7 different people talking, and then you say, okay, that's come down to the coaching and saying this is the team leadership.
Right.
But I think at some point, I think there should be 1, maybe 2 people that should go into the conversation. And you do have a lot of experience in that team, but the message needs to be sound. It needs to be straightforward. If you have a bunch of people talking about various different things,
right,
it may get a little bit diluted.
Yeah. Well, I mean, honestly, I think they were. I think that game in particular was lost in the forwards. I think coaching wise, they were less than okay when it came to maul situation. I think also too that there's too many combinations that they're trialing right now from a coaching standpoint.
Yeah.
Which goes back into my point is everyone thinks that they've got a voice or they've got a say on the field, right? Whether you've got any of the Barretts at 10 or Richie Mo'unga, whether it's TJ off the bench or on the field, whether it's, Whitelock on the field or Italic or what, do you know what I mean? And I think we saw, I don't think I ever watched the All Blacks that I know and love play this Rugby Championship.
Okay.
I saw a really good team. Like I saw a team of 23 players that represented the well.
Yeah.
But I go back to like the greatest leadership era that I've seen personally was like Zinzan Brooke for the All Blacks, John Eales for the Wallabies, where it was just like they're like, no, this is what we're doing. Yeah. Shut up, let's go. Do you know what I mean? And I don't think we saw that with the All Blacks. Leading the way. Look, am I confident for a World Cup?
Ooh, okay. All right, there we go.
I saw too many cracks. I think there needs to be, controversial statement.
From you, no.
We need to lose a Barrett in the back line.
Too many Barretts.
Too many Barretts in the back line.
It's funny how you just like we need to. You'd say we need to lose this position or we need to do this thing. Nah, just get rid of a Barrett. We'll be sweet.
No, dude. Now, based off what I saw, right?
Yeah.
When you play, Bodie and Geordie play very similar. Okay, the tells are way too easy. Okay, when one is running one way, you know that he's getting the ball, and you know it's going to be coming from the other one. Okay. Right? Whether that they're trying to slice in the middle, like there was a play that they did where Bodie's got the ball and he's looking, right? You had two centers, one was marked, one wasn't, or you could go the double back. And he kicks the ball, and lo and behold, the other one's running through. Right? All he had to do was dish the ball to one of the centers, and then you're fine. Yeah. And I just think that what we're looking at now is a team that is made up of really close-knit players, which is what you want in your back line.
Yeah.
But making the wrong decisions off emotional pulse as opposed to seeing what's in front of them.
I like that. Okay. And that's something I feel like it was, especially at line-out time, I feel like we just made the wrong call every time. It was we went to the front, and obviously it's like it's a safe option, but it's if you continue to do it over and over again, especially like
against a team like
Springboks.
And dude, you know what? Also too, like Brad Weber was the best halfback during that whole champion. When he played, he was the man. I've never seen ball that fast, that flat, or that deep, or those kicks perfect. And yet you started once.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't. We've had conversations on and off about how I don't like TJ starting, especially against certain teams. But I want to get James in on this. Is why do you think they lost the last Test match? And I know, coming from a Wallabies fan, try to be impartial if you can.
I think the All Blacks match up, like the Springboks match up better against the All Blacks than the Wallabies do.
Yeah.
Whenever the All Blacks lose a game, they get bustled by line speed and hard shoulders and get forced into turnovers.
Mm-hmm.
The few games that the Wallabies have beaten the All Blacks recently has come off the back of forcing errors and extreme line speed.
Yeah.
The counter side of that is that there's risk at flying up out of the line against the All Blacks, because if you concede a line break, it's 7 points.
Yeah.
But I think the Springboks always kind of just buy into flying off the line, whacking, forcing errors. And then I think on the other side, I don't think the All Blacks got the risk right.
No.
So I thought they pushed some passes at times and places on the field where they probably need to tuck.
Yep.
And then they contested some breakdowns within 40 meters within goal kicking range where you probably need to leave those alone and have a crack in other parts of the field.
Yeah.
So I thought they didn't get the risk right at the breakdown or using the ball. And I think the knock-ons led to at least one of the tries.
Mm-hmm.
Breakdown penalties led to and an overzealous referee led to a lot of penalty goals.
Yeah.
And I thought that was probably the biggest factor.
I think the one thing too when it comes to those breakdowns was they switched up their center pairing way too often.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
that was so silly.
You can't build chemistry if you continue changing. Yeah.
I think as much as I love George Bridge and Ioane, let's just keep those guys on the wing. What? I'm not trying to be mean.
No, I agree. I don't like Rico on the centers. It's been something that I've said for a long time.
Right.
I think in Super Rugby, I think he's amazing for the Blues because it works in their system. But when you try and put him, he's a liability on defense. Like when it comes to his offensive style, he's evasive. He's able to do some things that other players can't. But you look at him as overall, is he a center? Hell no.
No. Well, but here's the thing though. If we go back to what James was saying with the breakdowns, what are they coaching? Because those penalties weren't just one or two players, which essentially could be the case.
Yeah.
This was the whole team, subs included. Where I'm like, hands in, collapsing them all, offside. I was just
not enough support.
Just literally, it was like, and like I said, I didn't see the All Blacks that I know and love. I saw 23 players that represented the jersey really well, and almost got away with it, clean skate.
Okay, well let's take that part and let's use this as an opportunity to get a quick answer from you guys. Is when it comes to the captaincy, we were talking about someone leading the pack. And we've got three choices. We've got Whitelock, we've got Ardie Savea, and we've got Sam Cane. Obviously, when he's coming back into the fold, Ian Foster's already said that he's not gonna become captain. He's just gonna.
He shouldn't have been captain in the first place.
But think of it this way: if you had them at their best and they came into an All Blacks fold and everyone was equal, who do you guys think? Quick answer. Would be the best fit for the captaincy? Because me personally, I think it would be Whitelock.
Yep, I'm Sam Whitelock as well.
Yeah, James, what do you reckon?
Both good options. I feel like I've got no data behind this, but I feel like Sam Cane is almost undefeated as captain. Have we got?
That's post McCall era too. So you still got, you slide in without the team changing a little, too much,
So if you look at which captains have lost tests, Severe's now lost a test.
I don't think Whitelock has lost a test under his leadership. I'm pretty sure.
It's only two, right? He's only captain twice.
Oh, I think it's been 4 or 5. I think it's been a few. It hasn't been a couple.
Oh, well, I don't know. We don't know the facts, but we should really. We need what Joe Rogan has. We need what's his name, Jason or whatever.
Oh, the kid.
I was getting in the corner, just fact check. Nah, and there's a screen in front. There's nah, boys, nah.
Okay, so the last thing I do want to talk about really quickly before we talk about the standouts from each team is who deserves those centre pairing jerseys. So
not easy.
I've got Havili and I've got Peter Umaga Jensen, who's not in the squad.
Stellar season though, Super Rugby.
Yeah. So look, really quickly, just provide me your centre pairings. Who do you think?
Dude, I think David Havili and ALB 12-13. Having said that though, and this has nothing to do with the All Blacks, I think Karevi and Baisami are the form centers in the world, and are gonna. And if that center pairing with Quaid at 10 happens, I'm mucho scared of what's gonna happen next year.
He's bringing his Latin flair because we're in California. James, what do you reckon?
Mate, I think Havili has established himself at 12, and I think there's big question marks at 13, and I don't have answers.
Dude, James, I want to ask you, is it interesting watching Havili because he's played 10, 12, 13, and 15? And I think he made his All Blacks debut 2015, right? Yeah. So he's been there for a while. Yeah. And I'm pretty sure it was against Samoa was his All Blacks. Correct. Him and George Mawala, right?
I believe so, yeah.
Right? And I honestly didn't think too much about him for a little while. Mm-hmm. What he's done as 12 for the he beefed up, went from 92 kilos to 102.
Yeah, fullback to center. Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And I just couldn't believe how good he was.
Yeah.
And how good he handled it. Having said that, though, watching Karevi, it goes to show that if you're not playing there for a while, you perhaps are behind the 8 ball a little bit. What are your thoughts on Havili's sort of run to being the supreme number 12?
I think he got an All Blacks cap very young, didn't he? And he probably wasn't.
Yeah, he was real young. I mean, he's like maybe 26 now.
Yeah, he came into the squad very young, and then he got basically bounced out because there were so many people on the rise, and he had injuries, health issues, other things like that. He just wasn't considered.
Nobody owns an All Black jersey, do they?
Nah, never.
Mate, I think he's played his way into it through very good form at Super Rugby, and he's got good combinations with a bunch of other guys who are pretty established All Blacks.
Yeah.
So, mate, the idea of it's a bit of a spine of a backline where you've got Mwanga at 10, Havili at 12, and Reece on the wing. And I love the amount of times that those three connect in some way to score a spectacular try at super level and a couple of times at test level. I think those three play well off of each other, and I think, I think they probably all earn a spot in the starting All Blacks.
That's I think people have slept on Sevu Reece. I think he had didn't have the best season last year, and he's coming this season. He looks fitter, bigger, faster, more agile, and more mobile. And you're right, James. I think what they provide, and dare I say it, on the other wing, you have our boy Will.
Oh, yeah. You could really put a full back line out and it'll be all Crusaders and they all go, okay, that's cool.
I mean, it's Crusaders, right?
Let's just do that.
There's Andrew Mertens at 10.
He's too busy talking crap about referees on stand. There you go.
Dude, crap. He's on point.
No, he's talking crap, but he's good crap.
Oh, yeah, good crap.
What about Will Jordan at 13 and you give him 2 years to grow into it?
Put him in the weight room. I don't assume that he couldn't do it.
Well, here's the thing. Will Jordan, he makes more passes as a winger and better sort of like that outside in decision making. Him at 13 is good, but like that boy's he's gonna have to put on some mad weight in the next 2 years. But I'm here for it, James. That's a really great call. When you've got Havili, you got that guy. So here's the thing. We're going let's go back into All Blacks history. Now you're going into a backline where you've got something like Andrew Mertens or Carlos Spencer, and then you've got like an Alama Iramia or at 12 or Nua Sam Tuitabo.
Yeah.
And then you got a 13 in like an Umanga.
Yeah. Who
can just just do things that no one else seems to be able to do. I dare say too, on the Wallabies level, some guys like Jason Little, a Dan Herbert at 13, they're just doesn't look like they do much. And then you watch them play and you're like, oh my goodness. And a young Sterling Mortlock, who I hate that I think was one of the best 13s Australia ever had. But he was the man.
All right. Yeah. Well, let's finish this off because I want to go through really quickly. We'll go in I'll say a clockwise direction. So it'll be me, Hulla, and then James.
That's anti-clockwise, according to me.
According to my screen.
Okay.
There you go. But I want to talk about standouts for each team during the Rugby Championship. So 1 to 2 people during each team. We'll start with New Zealand first because we'll go back through the ranks. Geordie Barrett, I think he's now cemented himself in that fullback jersey.
When I said that Barrett needs to go, it wasn't him.
It wasn't Geordie. Because I think, especially with Damien McKenzie taking that overseas contract, the All Blacks aren't like every other team where they can bring people back from overseas. If you're gone, you're gone. Like, you're not coming back in that fold. And I think you've got other remarkable fullbacks. You've got guys like your Will Jordans who can do things that you sit there and you go, wow, this is amazing. But I think something sets Geordie apart from his kicking game, his air game, everything like that. I think he's just cemented himself. And I think, who was it? John Kerwin, he said that we need to get back towards a fixed 3. We haven't had a fixed 3 since Ben Smith, before the 2019 World Cup. So I think getting back to that and saying like you were talking about the centre pairings where we don't change each player in and out just because we kind of think the fits better. I think if it
broke, don't fix it, G.
Exactly. Yeah. So all right, All Blacks player. Who you got, Hull?
So I mean, David Havili's the guy for me that really solidified himself. Like of all the players, he's the one that's now like, well, I'm here. This is mine. Come take it from me.
Yeah.
Having said that too, I also think Akira Ioane. Oh, you disagree?
No, I don't disagree because like you've been probably the most critical of him.
I have,
and I like it.
Dude, the guy killed it.
Yeah, he did well.
Dude, against South Africa.
Yeah, he did his job. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, those are my two. James,
who you got?
I've got no new names. I thought it was difficult to pick a best Kiwi because across the 6 matches, guys came in and out, and then guys also had quiet games and great games. So I don't know if any of the All Blacks players played all 6 matches and brained them all. So I found that quite difficult to
choose one. Yeah.
To choose,
okay. No, that's fair enough because I think with a lot of teams they came in and
if you don't like the All Blacks, brothers, just say so. It's fine. It's a safe space. If you don't know their names because you don't want to, that's also cool. So.
Okay, so we'll come back. We'll come back to more something you're comfortable with, and I'll throw it straight back to you. So the Wallabies, who do you think was the real standout in that campaign?
Cooper and Samu Karevi obviously standouts and very influential. I'll pick Andrew Kellaway though.
We got to stop agreeing. This is weird.
Straight off Coogee Oval. Good Wicks man.
It's my boy Blue.
Straight off of Coogee Oval and the Randwick Club, and he just scoring tries for fun, and he's got a very good feel for the game, and he looks to have locked in one of those wing spots.
Oh man, has he ever? Jeez.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, who you got?
Matt, well, mine was Quaid and Kellaway too, but I'm not going to agree with him because now I feel like we should get married. So I'm still going to stick with Quaid for obvious reasons. Here's the one thing with Quaid, and I think it's a little different having a personal relationship with him. The one thing that I really enjoyed about watching Quaid and purely watching it was just understanding and seeing what he's been speaking about the last few years I saw on the field, which I haven't seen. And that goes as far as him literally calling us all a cab to watch him at Souths.
Oh, yeah.
And, like, making sure we were good at Souths, you know.
Yeah.
But watching him at Souths, like, 3 years ago.
Greatest club ever in Brisbane, right?
Ooh, I mean, shittest probably comes to mind. But watching him do that and get in his senior role and helping the younger fellas.
Yeah. And
then watching him do that for the with the Australian jersey on, like I really did, like that really meant a lot to him, and like I really enjoyed watching that. But for me, Foleti Kaitu, I thought he was under immense and look, I've been critical tonight about the front row, and he's come in from the Western Force, and he's done the hard yards.
Yeah,
I don't think he's had the best campaign. But I think it's about bloody time they start investing in the hooker role and the front row role a lot.
Yeah.
And he's one player that's really been putting in the hard yards. I think there's a lot that he can do and a lot of work he can do, and he's going to do it. But I dare say he could be the permanent fix for the Wallabies coming into the World Cup. And I'm really keen to see where that goes for him.
No, I agree. I think the Western Force have been considered an afterthought for too long, and I think he's been a player that's come through the system. Like he's played Aussie schoolboys, he's played I think Aussie 20s as well.
Yeah, and he was with the Reds for so long.
Yeah.
And then they, Rugby Australia and QI, you do a good job of flushing people down the freaking toilet. I'm not critical. I'm just real.
All right. Well, for me, I don't think mine was like a standout or someone who was the best player on the field, but I think it goes to like, I guess it would come back to like a most improved. So Valentini for me, I feel like he wasn't the greatest player on the field, but when he came to his job of what he needed to do, I felt he did really well. It reminds me kind of a Radiki Samo kind of play. I think he's got a bright future in the Wallabies jersey. A lot of people think it's a controversial.
But where do you think, though? What do you think his position is?
I think 8. I honestly think 8 because, like, I think with the flankers we have at the moment, I think if you put like Hooper at 7 and you put McMahon at 6 or something like that. I know McMahon plays a good 8, but I think if you put Valentini at 8,
what about Samuel?
I think he's better off the bench. I kind of feel like he's played better off the bench when I've seen him, but I think that might be because all I've seen him this campaign has come off the bench. So what I probably want to see is him starting the game, play like a full 50, 60 minutes, and then I can make a more executive decision. But there's been a lot of people coming in and out where I just saw Valentini every time he started or every time he played, he just did his job. So I don't know. There could be a lot of different opinions, and there's really not a wrong answer there. But yeah, that's my opinion. But we'll move on to the Springboks, and I'll go first again. So there were two players for me. There was Quagga Smith. I really thought Quagga he was the same type of player. Like he wasn't the most consistent player. He wasn't the best player on the field, but when it came to getting over the ball and being a traditional flanker and really putting that ruck under pressure, I think he was a really good pesterer on the defensive side of the ball. My other one was Francois Staines. So I think, like I said before, he was a big injection in that last test, 50-22 kick. I think he was a very strong ball carrier, which I think they needed in that second half. So yeah, those are my two. James, what do you got?
I've got Mornay Stain.
Yeah.
So
Mornay Stain. Francois came off the bench.
So Francois, I get confused too. Francois kicked the winning penalty goal in the Lions series.
Wasn't it? I thought Francois came off the bench in the 23 jersey.
I may be wrong. Anyway, he's my pick too. He was very good.
One of the Stains. One of the Stains.
The Stain that came off the bench.
The Stain of
the 50-22s. And then he also whacked McKenzie and should have affected a really good turnover and got penalised unluckily. But his defence was very good.
It was good.
His kicking was very good, and he was a huge injection. He's my two.
It was Mornay Stain. I apologise. I thought it was Francois, but yeah, too many Stains on the field.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Oh,
dude, man, I think for me it's Kolisi. And not for anything that he did on the field as a player, but how he led his team around.
Yeah.
I think I don't know, man. I just think it's been it was a beautiful moment that we saw when they did those photos.
Yeah.
And it was the 100th test was the first time that South Africa and New Zealand had men of color as their captains. And I just think what Kolisi does for South African rugby is huge.
Yeah,
I think he represents it really well. And going back to what I said earlier is watching players on the field, how they just their body language, and how they're interacting with each other. I just think I never saw him. What is it? I'm guilty of it too. What do you put your freaking head in the game? Do you know what I mean? Like he was very much he's
like calling people out on the field.
Yeah, but he does it in such a way that I look at him and I'm like, I just see a lot of grace and a lot of poise.
Yeah.
And that's something that even in defeat, the man is so humble and so gracious. And you can see that after their losses, there was just sort of this calmness, and that comes from your leadership team down.
Mm-hmm.
Having said that, though, the guy is a mother effer of a player.
He's a monster.
Yeah, he is. But I just think Kolisi right now is my favorite rugby player in the world, and I just think how we how the world embellishes LeBron James. We need to do that for him.
Yeah,
because I just think he leads his team and his nation on his back, and he does it effortlessly whilst maintaining a humbleness and also making sure that the world knows that it's not just about our team, and it's about everything that's happening in the world too. And I'm a big fan of that. And honestly, he's the only captain I see in world rugby right now that can really, you can put him in front of the UN and he'll just be him.
Yeah.
Do you know, you're going to get the same speech that he does post-match, win, loss, or draw at the UN. And I really admire him. I think he's just a great leader and a great ambassador for rugby in the world.
Yeah. Okay. Last team, obviously, we said before, run to the litter, Argentina.
Whoa! Come on, man. Run to the litter. They've got feelings, bro.
I'm not saying they don't have feelings.
They've won games before.
They came last. So, sorry. Okay. But we'll bounce back to you.
I'm going to be honest, man. They had a terrible campaign.
No one stood out for you?
No one stood out.
Yeah. James?
Lavanini, the lock.
Yeah.
He's
He
aggressive.
spends good aggression. He's their Lockie Swinton. He's
Yeah.
probably got a
Yeah. He's that guy. He's the guy that'll wet willy you in the ruck. That's who he.
No. Well, he's also the guy that the guy that the opposition team niggles as soon as he gets onto the field, because you know he's going to do something stupid and he's a card magnet.
Can we all agree that we saw him do this? Like, starts with a fist, ends with the palm.
Because he hesitated. He sat there and goes,
He's a grub.
That's a red card. If I slap someone, it's in between.
And then he does this, though. He does like the little twist, like in the eye. I'm like, guys.
So he goes, punch.
And then like
the eye gouge. Yeah, there you go. See, eye gouge.
The open.
Yeah. Oh, man.
He's welcome to the filth any day of the week.
Brothers, that's terrible. I think for me, it's pretty tough to put a finger on someone, but I think Montoya. I think he was the captain, right? For the hooker.
The last game.
Yeah. So I think like with impossible odds and so many things that are coming at you from a player standpoint, you can only handle what's in front of you. And I think on game day, he stood up and he tried to make the best of a shitty situation. So,
It's funny you say that too. I think all joking aside, I think he showed the most composure and controlled aggression during that game. And if anything, he sort of hyped the team up, but also set the bar like, we can do this, but we're not going here.
Yeah.
We're staying here. We're not going here.
Well, I think as opposed to Matera, who was like, we can do this, but we're going to punch everyone up here. So, yeah, we're just going to like just go and just beat everyone's door down and just try and make it the best situation possible. But, yeah, I agree. I think his composure was something that really stood out for me, because even the conversations that we saw when he was chatting to the ref, he was in a full fist fight.
Dude, it was like watching a drunk guy talk to a bouncer at a nightclub at 2 in the morning.
That recollection where he's like, oh crap,
like,
lockjaw. I'm not drunk. Okay, there you go. Yeah, I think it's pretty tough to put a finger on. I'm surprised you didn't say Checker, James, the coach.
Mate, I'm telling you right now, Argentina are a dark horse coming into World Cup if Checker stays there. I'm like genuinely worried that they're gonna, because here's the thing, they're pulled pretty well. So they can definitely they can get a really nice run, and then all of a sudden they're in semifinals and everyone sort of slept on them for that little tad bit. Yeah. So I don't know, man. I mean, I love Argentinian rugby when they play right.
Yeah. Okay. Well, next week we'll chat about the spring tours. Excited to chat about the Wallabies spring tours and obviously the All Blacks as well.
And Tonga! Let's go!
We got some awesome matches to chat about. And we also are going to chat a bit about the Fijian Drua team, how they named a few of their players. Minor Pacifica obviously naming some players as well. Hulla has some insight into
don't know what we're talking about.
Who he thinks are going to be the players that are called. But yeah,
Polynesians don't talk.
They literally don't. Every Polynesian I've ever spoken to.
I can tell you he's moving to South Auckland real quick.
That's actually good. Yeah, just try and sit and just watch their train wreck. Yeah, there you go. Okay, but yeah, we got a lot of chat about next week because I'm going to be attending that spring tour match for the All Blacks in DC.
Hey, here's the thing. Did I put money already that the All Blacks are going to put 85 points on America? I did.
I mean, considering they lost.
No, they didn't.
They lost. Yeah.
No, they didn't. Wait, who did Canada lose to?
Chile.
Chile. Oh, they did.
Yeah, so
they're out of the World Cup.
Canada's not. Yeah, America's got 2 chances left, but
they'll be fine.
Yeah. James, anything from your side of the world before we end?
No, mate. Just excited for Wick's preseason starts in a few weeks, and the spring tour. So plenty of rugby happening and things opening up in Sydney. So happy days.
How what's it look like for New South Wales rugby out there, like your Premier grade and whatnot?
Well, next season 2022 should be business as usual.
Yeah.
If the virus cooperates and enough people are vaccinated, and looks like it'll be business as usual.
Well, I will say, obviously, I'm moving allegiances because a lot of Ponsonby boys have headed over to go play for the Two Blues, so I think they should be renamed the Ponsonby Two Blues. But I'll be be supporting them one and then Wick second because I don't know anyone that plays on.
I'm still loyal to you, James. Don't you worry, bro.
Wow, okay.
Still loyal to you.
Way to call me out. All right, cool.
Appreciate
Well, everyone,
that.
thank you for listening to the Bonus Point podcast and thank you for roasting me. I appreciate it. But yeah, tune in next week. We'll share this video on all social media platforms, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. It was great to record in Since 86 Studios. Very excited to be in here doing this regularly. But yeah, thank you for listening and we will see you soon.